I'm going to be talking to Donna Kalajian-Lagani, who's got this really cool career. Right now, she's a senior program officer at the Hearst Foundations, which normally gives out about $40 million in grants per year, but because of COVID this year, that's been $90 million because of emergency grants. It covers the grants cover education, health, social services, and particularly pays attention to helping underrepresented populations. Prior to joining the foundations about 11 years ago in 2009, Donna was Senior Vice President and Publishing Director of the Young Women's Group at Hearst Magazines, which for her started with Cosmo. She is the woman who came up with Fun, Fearless, and Female. She also oversaw the 17 and the business for women's health. She was the one who went out, got the money, and said, we're going to convince you to spend all your advertising dollars here in our magazines and why you should do that. She spent a lot of time and was very successful doing that. When she decided she was ready for something new, it was philanthropy. So here's a question for you. When you decided, I thought it was so interesting when we were doing prep and I was talking to Donna about how she made her switch. She went to her mentor, his name is Frank Bannock, who was a former CEO of Hearst, and said, here's the next thing I want to do. And he said, no, I feel that there's something else that I want you to do. So it took a while for her to make the switch from what she was doing to what she wanted to do next. And Donna, I'd love for you to talk to us about how you stuck to it, how you said, no, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do next.
Sure. Well, I want to make a comment about mentors. And Cindy, if you're still on, you have a great personality. So whoever told you that, you probably didn't have to pivot that much to get to where you are. So good for you. But, my comment about mentors in general, because you were asking about it before, is, I think it's really important to have a mentor. And, Frank Bannock is the vice chairman of the board of the corporation. And he recruited me into the position for publisher of Cosmopolitan. And he is, to this day, my mentor. And he always had my back. I always trusted him. I could go to him with any question that I had. And I knew that I have tons of confidence anyhow. I am the kind of person that the whole world is half full to me. And as my husband would tell you, somebody has to sort of stick a knife in my back and turn it a couple times before I start to lose confidence. But, Mr. Bannock really wanted me to stay at Cosmo because it is the most profitable women's media brand in the world. And he was reluctant to let me change, but I was there for a long time. And the reason he didn't at the last couple of years when I went to him and said I really wanted to change, Lee, we went through 3 editor-in-chief changes. And I understood from his point of view that you couldn't have the person who was driving all the revenue and the profit go away while you were having a new editor-in-chief come in. And I trusted him. I trusted him to know that he would do the right thing by me when the time was right. And I also made a lot of great use of that time. So, I feel I was I was at Cosmo for 26 years. It sounds, some of you on the call are probably not even 26 years old, right? So it may sound ancient to you. But I honestly feel like I never had the same job for more than maybe 6 months. Because in my position, I was able to recreate my brand, reinvent the brand. And I was always looking to do different things. So as you said, Lee, in that time, in those 3 years that it took Mr. Bannock to finally say yes to me, I oversaw Women's Health and oversaw 17 magazine. And I have a lot of fun at what I do. Part of, you said we created Fun, Fearless, Female. I think if you don't come to work with passion and fun every day, you shouldn't be doing it. So I wanted to do something different that I hadn't done before. So I asked to take over. I studied the different businesses and said, an area that we could be driving a lot of revenue and profit is brand licensing. So I took over global brand licensing in the last, I guess, year and a half that I was still, as publishing director of Cosmo. So, I persevered. And I think the thing is, I've always, and being the person who generated revenue and closed deals, I always keep my eye on the prize, so I knew where I wanted to go. I knew that I'd spent decades of my career having a great, fabulous, successful, rewarding career in publishing and print and digital publishing. But I kept my eye on the ball, and I trusted that when it was right, he would get me there. And sort of the last conversation when he said, okay, you have to wait another year. I'm like, okay, no, that I'm not doing. It's like, we got to do this. And here's the time frame. I'm leaving in January. So that's really how it happened.
I love how you were driving the bus, though. At the end, you were like, listen, I trusted you, but listen, I know what's best for me. That's so interesting to hear that. My next question really goes back to Cindy spoke about doing something very different, when you went from HR to financial, eventually financial advising.
Oh, not me.
No, I know. Cindy is.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah.
So Donna, you did something similar. Again, you guys, when I was talking to Donna, I said, well, how did you learned a lot from publishing and Cosmo. How did you apply that to the Hearst Foundations? And she said, well, it was a totally different gig. Yeah. So talk to us about how you applied or did not apply all the skills that you had from your previous life and now your new job or your current position at the foundations.
Yeah. Well, it's been a big change. I'll tell you a couple of things that I miss very much. I miss very much working on strategy, because I am good at it, and it's what kept me entertained, and it what kept the business moving in the right direction. So I don't work on strategy really at the foundations, and I miss it. I don't manage a large staff, and I miss it. I had a great staff. We were best, not best buds because we worked together, but we were really great colleagues. I built a tremendous team. I miss them every day. So those are the things that I knew going into philanthropy, this new position, that I was walking away from. And it was hard to walk away from it. And, frankly, it's a little scary after decades doing something pretty well and being, very successful at what I had done, to take on an area that instead of me knowing all the answers, I had all the questions. But I fortunately have some great colleagues at the foundations who are giving me a PhD in philanthropy. And some of the things that I have been able to carry forward with me, marketing skills. So we redid the website for HearstFDN.org. So please check it out, because it's really beautiful and it's very current for what's happening today. So that was great, because I was able to use my marketing skills to work on that, redesign the website, work on a couple of the big programs that we have, and publish magazines or yearbooks for them. And I think, the thing that I've always bring with me is probably one of my greatest strengths is having strong relationships. And that's why I was a successful seller or deal maker, is that I had long, deep relationships with people who I had worked with, who believed that I would deliver what I told them we were doing. So, relationships, whether it was with my employees or my staff or clients, I've been able to bring that with me to the foundation by not only creating great relationships within the foundation, but with our grantees, the nonprofits to whom we give those, this year, $90 million to. And as I think of, a seller / deal maker, you have to listen really well. And you have to interpret what someone's saying so you understand what you want to sell to them. In my prior life, well, in this life, I have to listen very, very closely, because there are very few requests that come in, Lee, that aren't sound worthwhile organizations to whom we could be granting. But, we have 40 million this year, $90 million. It's not unlimited. So I have to listen very carefully to what people are saying their organizations are about. And I think, that's been a skill that I've brought with me. I guess the other thing is, as a person who generated a lot of the revenue, people don't think of that you can be kind doing that. Well, I am kind, and I manage through kindness. And having been on the selling side where I had some, yucky buyers that weren't so nice sometimes to me, and I learned that I'd never wanted to be that way. And I think it was Cindy or Emily who said, learn from the people what you don't want to be as well. So I think I've brought that empathy that I have and that kindness into the world of philanthropy where I can give back. The other thing that I think is very similar is I have a tremendous thirst for for learning. Living too, yes, but for learning. And, it's so great for me at this stage of my career to be able to learn something new every single day and to feel that my learning curve is a complete vertical. So the thirst of, learning that I had in all those years in publishing has been easily translated to my thirst for living in the world of philanthropy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so interesting. I just find it really, really, really brave of everyone who makes a very big switch. I think that's fascinating. So you did that mid-career.
Maybe that's really kind of you.
It's almost like a little bonus career, maybe.
Careerly? Okay, thanks, though. I appreciate that.
It might have been, you might have retired, but you're like, nope, I've got another career in me.
But that is true. So that was the decision. The decision was, should I retire? No. I mean, I don't actually know how I'm ever going to not work. I was raised by a working mommy who worked until she was in her 70s. So to me, the question wasn't, was I going to work, but what did I want to do as sort of my next, act, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, my question really is about that, we talked to two young women who made some changes in the early career to figure out what they really wanted. What's your advice for someone who might be looking for that kind of bonus career or the mid-career change? Did you journal for yourself? Did you kind of, how did you clarify this is what I want to do next? And what is your advice for people who are looking to make that jump as well?
So I really did have a vision of where I wanted to go. And philanthropy has been important in my life, in my family's life, in my husband's, in my life. And, I'd spent my whole career generating revenue and generating profit. And I thought, this is a really beautiful way to be able to give back. So, I would say when you make that change, try if you can to have a clear vision of where your goal is and how to get there. And you have to be fearless. I mean, that, fun, fearless female, I have fun, but I told you, it was a little intimidating going from knowing it all to having to learn everything pretty much from the bottom up and from scratch, But I think that you can't be afraid to walk away from something you love. You have to be fearless and brave enough to walk towards something that you love. And look, I was luckily, suppose I got there and didn't like it. Well, I guess I don't know what I would have done because I told you I'm not going to retire, But I do love it. And I'm not afraid to take on new skills and learn new things. And, passion, I think, when you move from one career to another, especially one which I was always so passionate about to begin with, and I wanted to make sure that I still had that passion in whatever I was doing. That was something that I looked for. And I think it's something that, you can't expect people to give it to you. You have to have it inside of you, You come to work every day. Somebody was saying, you wake up. I never had those Sunday evening blues of thinking, oh gosh, I got to get up and go to work tomorrow morning, So that I think is what did it. I had a vision, I had a goal, I stuck with it. I had a mentor that got me there. And if he hadn't gotten me there, I was ready to make the move to then leave and go someplace else to do philanthropy, which I would have done, but happily I didn't have to, and I'm really happy at Hearst Foundations.
Yeah. I want to open it up to questions, you guys. Anybody has a question, pop it in the chat, and I'd like to kind of call on you to speak it yourself. Jen, I miss you, Jen. Jen works, or did when we were in buildings, upstairs from me in the newsroom. She has a question, and if you could unmute yourself, Jen, and go ahead and
sure,
pop it out there.
Hi there. Good to see your face too. And a lot of faces on here that I really am happy to see. So Donna, thank you so much for offering your insight. I was curious, something that you said really struck me. You said it's hard to move from having all of the answers to the questions to having, from having all the answers to having all of the questions. And I think that's just really profound. And I'm just curious, how did you go about tackling all of those questions or breaking that down and getting going in your new role at the foundation?
Jen, first off, thanks for checking out the website. Winsome checked out the website and loved it. Thank you. Jen, I'm not afraid to ask for help. I've never been afraid to ask for help. And that sort of goes, I'll go back to a little bit of what I said about mentoring. I've mentored a lot of people, but I've had reverse mentors too. So that when I was at Cosmo and, Women's Health, and we were creating, I had ideas about Amazon, we could do it with Amazon, ideas we could do with Snapchat, but I knew that I'm not a digital native. So I leaned on my team to help guide me into some of those areas. So, I think there's nothing embarrassing about not knowing the answer to a question, especially if you're new at something. And as long as you're surrounded by people, and I have been surrounded, some of you have said that you worked in toxic environments. First off, most of the time I led the environment, so it was not toxic, but I've not worked in toxic environments. So it's always been anyone, myself and anyone that ever worked for me, felt completely comfortable asking questions and not feeling that you were being stupid doing it. And, when I got to and I think some of it's humility, I didn't get there after having had this, kick-ass career and act like I knew what I was doing at the foundations. I got there and said, guys, I need your help. Like, I'm really excited to be here, but I don't know. I'm not sure what the road map is here. And by the way, I do the same thing when I speak to grantees. When I'm speaking to grantees that are asking for money, I will say to them, listen, I'm new into philanthropy. So, I have questions that I have to ask you about food insecurity or social injustice that was just not even on my radar in the past for me to think about. So I guess, it goes back to be fearless, surround yourself with great people. Have mentors that you're not afraid to ask any question of, that have your back, and, go for it. What's the worst they could do if you ask a dumb question? Nothing. Can't fall off the floor, right?
My question is, I'm going to bring it up here. I wondered if you would speak about how impactful it is to be in philanthropy at this time, where there's so many opportunities to change systems that can actually have societal transformation. I just think it's such an amazing window of time to be in.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as much as I loved my other career, this is the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my career. And, you're right, especially at this moment. For years, the Hearst Foundations have funded social service. Is a very important area for us. Education, social service, health, and now especially the impact that we've had in giving this $90 million worth of grants this year. We've been able to truly impact what's happened with aging populations, with food insecurity. We have always supported historically Black colleges. We will be doing that even more so now. So with our emergency funding, 60% of it went to health organizations. And a lot of that was for frontline workers through the pandemic. And what's been so rewarding is after we granted this money, they report back to us what impact they've had. And, organizations have gone from serving 10,000 meals to 100,000 meals over the course of a month. Or, healthcare workers who've written to us saying, thank you for supporting us with your grant. So it's a very pivotal time, right, for our country. It's not new work for us at the foundations. It's new to me because I'm new to the foundation, but it's not new work to us. I think it just reinforces the areas that are important to the foundation are areas that are really important to continue the conversation in America. Most of what we do in any case is for underserved communities, whether it's children or people who are incarcerated or helping people get into workplace, back into the workforce after having been incarcerated. So there's everything we do has such tremendous impact. And sometimes, we say, oh, it's too local. It's too local for us to fund. Well, if you're touching 50 people's lives, that's really important and can change people's lives. So I'm very, very proud. I hope you can tell. I'm really, really proud of the work that the Hearst Foundations does, and I'm really proud to be part of it. Thanks for your question.
That's clearly so rewarding. Yeah, I loved how you described yourself as having gone from a seller to a buyer.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question for Alexandra. She's having some connectivity issues, so I'm gonna happy anniversary, Lisa. That's cool. I heard if you guys Google, there's this great interview that Donna did in 2009, which was when she was, it was before you went to the foundations at Penn State. She was like, how did you find that? I'm like, listen, you got to.
I don't know how I found that. I'm afraid to look at it, though.
It's good. So you will see, if you were interested, guys, in doing that. It's really interesting about the day-to-day of how she spent her life when she was in her previous role at the magazines. But Alexandra's question is about what does your typical day look like now, and what are some key things that have to happen during the day for you to feel successful? To feel that day was successful.
Okay, so my typical day is speaking with prospective grantees. So the way the process works is that nonprofits put in requests to us to ask for funding for these different areas that we fund. And we read about 50 different proposals a month in our 4 different areas. And then we come together as a team once a month and we discuss whether we should pursue that grant request or not. Once we decide we want to pursue the grant request, someone is assigned to work with that nonprofit organization. And then we do a site visit. Now, generally those site visits are in person. Now they're all virtually done. So, I just did the White Plains Hospital, and we're going to be funding a new children's wing that they're going to have at White Plains Hospital. Normally, I would go there and see them and meet with the executive director or the president of the hospital. But now it's all done, it's all done on virtually on Zoom. And then, I would write up what my recommendation is. We present to the board once every quarter. So the board of directors and the trustees of the foundation look at what our recommendations are. Happily, I've heard that in the last decade, they've only rejected 3 times that the staff has recommended doing something. So that's pretty much my day. So reading requests that are coming on and meeting with people who we hope to give grants to. And then, there is nothing that's more rewarding than calling somebody and saying, we're giving you $500,000, And actually what was really fun through COVID is our emergency relief fund. We didn't even tell anybody we were doing it. So I had to make some phone calls. I think it was New York Community Trust. We were giving $500,000. And she said, is is this a phony phone call? I said, no, this is the real thing. So that's my day-to-day. And I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh, what makes success? Well, I guess what defines success is when we grant to people who truly have impact. That when they come back and they report to us, 14 months after we've given them the money, if they can truly show that they've moved the needle on something, and whether it's giving a scholarship to underserved, students, or increasing the amount of, food banks, or helping with food insecurity, that's what success means to me. To really know that our dollars, which are very substantial, are being used well, and that, as my boss says, the grantees are good stewards of our money.